Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your latest instalment in Glazers, Sir Jim and Qatar and all things Manchester United takeover. But before we get into all that important stuff about Manchester United's future, more importantly, Larry is alive. Larry is back on the pubcast. So welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, mate. Very keen to talk about Manchester United and this news. So, I mean, we'll get into it, but big news. I've got to say, there's another side note to this that's come out from Laurie Whitwell maybe in the last couple of hours. So I'm definitely keen to touch on that. But the big news, obviously, around the ownership. So ready to rip in and dissect it all with you, Tom.
If you are in the chat, do let us know your thoughts on all things. In regard, look, we have to cover out this in saying the first report or this initial report does come from the Sun newspaper. So whatever you do think of that, obviously you're entitled to your opinion. We're entitled. We probably share the same opinion in regards to the outlet. But why this is news, in my opinion, and why it is a little bit different. Not to say it's accurate or wrong, but why it is newsworthy, in my opinion. It is the first time a journalist has really put their name to something. In terms of a lot of the reports we've read over the last couple of months in regards to Qatar and Sir Jim have just been sources say, and this and that, and no one's putting their name to it. Just a paper like the Daily Mail or the Sun, for example, or the Times. It's just there, so it doesn't have an author. It's just the newspaper putting an article out there. This time, a journalist has put his name, saying, "Okay, this is what I believe. Or, this is the information I do have." Whether we believe that or not, look, it's the Sun newspaper, probably not. The likelihood is not wrong, but an individual has put their name to it. It is worth talking about because no other journalist has done so yet. So he has come out and said, and look, it's probably very smart, sort of, if he's putting two and two together, the information is probably very correct. As I've said in the last couple of weeks, I do think that the Glazers do prefer Sir Jim's bid in regards to they get the same amount of money as Qatar's given them, but they get to stay at the club. So that is why I do think it's clearly their preferred bid. Now, the preferred bid, in terms of the way this has been received on social media, a lot of people think that's the winning bid. It's not necessarily the preferred bid. They might prefer this bid, and the deal doesn't get over the line for whatever reason. This is just a preference at the moment. This does not mean Qatar won't come in and get the deal done. So just your thoughts on this in regards to, has a journalist just put two and two together, and simply if Qatar and Sir Jim are paying the same amount of money, but one of the deals in Sir Jim is keeping the Glazers on paper for 2 years, obviously that's the preferred bid. So just your thoughts on this news. Is your gut saying it's accurate and true, or is it playing a calculated guess?
Well, Tom, the way I look at it is you got a 50% chance of being right if you come out with a statement like this. And I think it's Martin Lipton who's come out with the story. I mean, I don't really call it brave. I got to be honest. I think there's been a lot of media press that suggests that the Glazers do prefer Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos's bid. This isn't breaking news, to be honest. I think that, like you said, that the only breaking news really is that a journalist has been willing to put his name to it. But who knows? I mean, Mark Ogden's been coming out with some stories around Sheikh Jassim and what his plans would be if he came in with the ownership now again. I think, honestly, I honestly think both parties have their journalists. They've now picked their parties, and it's now just a PR fight out on Twitter. That's as simple as that. And can I just say, I think the fan reaction to all of this has been embarrassing. I've got to be honest and say the fan reaction has been embarrassing. Forget what you think about the ownership, right? At the end of the day, Jim Ratcliffe nor Ineos have come out and said what their intentions are. So if anyone want to sit there and say, well, they're bad owners or they're going to be bad owners or it's the same as the Glazers, you couldn't be more wrong because you don't know. You don't know anything. You know as much as we do. So, don't assume. And the laziest thing has been, oh, well, if the biggest Manchester United YouTube fan channel at the moment, I was watching it just over an hour ago. He claims if this owner is willing to have the Glazers as part of the ownership, even if it's a 20% stake, he's against the fans. News alert, guys. If the Glazers don't want to sell, they don't have to sell. And if the only bid they're willing to accept is the one where they get to keep 20% so they can potentially make more money later, which devil do you prefer?
That's been completely my point over the last couple of weeks. That has been completely my point in regards to let's play these two owners' offers, and we'll get into the PR battle in a little bit. There's a point from Chris I want to bring up before we get into that. But if you're playing these two offer each other as fans, so Qatar, they've got the Class of 92 Foundation, whatever they call it, and Sir Jim is a lifelong Man United fan. Say they're both Manchester United fans like us. The main ambition, the main goal is to get the Glazers out. Their Glazers out there waving green and gold scarves around their home on a match day. if that is the case, who is doing more? And this is, and I always say this, I have to cover every point I make. I side on, if I'm picking a preferred bidder at the moment, I look to Qatar. However, if I'm playing these two off against each other and say who wants the Glazers out more, so who's a bigger fan, who wants that sort of end goal more out of these two owners, the answer is Sir Jim, because Qatar are throwing this money up, but they're not giving. That doesn't matter if they put 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion. What do the Glazers want? And the Glazers want a certain price and a stake in the club. And ultimately, that is the price you're going to have to pay. The 30 billion price might not be what the Glazers want. And suddenly, you're going to have to give the Glazers what they want to sort of have that sort of undertake that gradual process. And at the moment, Sir Jim's bid is giving them what they want. Now, as a fan, you can turn against Sir Jim and say, no, that's as good. That's just getting in bed with the Glazers and you're just another Glazer. Okay, you can have that opinion, maybe sort of quite valid. Or the other option is another 18 years of what Glazers in 100% control. So you have a choice now. If it comes down to Sir Jim and Qatar, or Sir Jim and the Glazers, and how you want to react as a fan, you can either choose, okay, Sir Jim having complete control of the club and the Glazers having a 20% stake and sort of leaving in 2 or 3 years. You have that option A, or option B is another 18 years of Glazers in full control. And anyone saying no to Sir Jim is an idiot. Like in regards to that scenario playing out, you're an absolute idiot if you're picking the Glazers, say, no, I don't want Sir Jim. And I'm just thinking, I understand it's not ideal. The Qatar bid's not ideal overall. In regards, there are pros and cons, and this is potentially one of the negatives around Sir Jim. But the price you pay, or the cost, if you go the other way, is another 18 years of the Glazers. And I can't get my head around that.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I think that people who are saying, oh, you know, he's willing to be in partnership with the Glazers are so ill-informed and so uneducated that they simply don't understand the impact of the words that they are spreading. And the larger the you know, I don't want to be too critical of people. I mean, I know that it comes from a good place, but at the end of the day, if you don't know a lot about something, don't speak about it, like respectfully. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're right, Tom. This isn't what Leeds United were in 2002. United are not a financially sinking ship. I mean, there's debt, but the club can still run day to day in theory. Yeah, we're not going to challenge for the top of the Premier League table like we all aspire and want. But at the end of the day, the club's not broke, so the Glazers have no obligation to sell. It's as simple as that. So if they know that they can get a deal where they get to make money now and make even more money later, but then they no longer get a say in the day-to-day running of the club, then I don't really see an issue. We won't know if Jim Ratcliffe is a good owner until we're 12 months down the line, or potentially even longer. Maybe at the end of his reign we'll know. But at least
this comment here from Dion, sorry to interrupt you, this sort of ties into a point I made yesterday in regards to a lot of the over-the-top criticism towards Harry Maguire and especially Scott McTominay, and now sort of David De Gea is the scapegoat, and I often find myself, whatever my opinion is, sometimes backtracking a little bit and defending someone who needs it a little bit more. And here I am on the side of preferring Qatar, but in terms of the shit Sir Jim Ratcliffe has received, I find myself defending him more because I feel the treatment has been unfair. And in regards to the main reason, look, again, I'm on Qatar's side, the main reason I'm starting to side with Sir Jim and giving him a little bit more backing is because the large platforms, the large accounts, the large Twitter accounts, the people with the large voices and influence amongst the fan base, they're completely 100% Ratcliffe out and oil me up for Qatar. And I just don't like that sort of reaction and behaviour as fans. So I'm starting to sort of side against them. And the reason I side against them is because if you want Qatar or Sir Jim, I don't care of your opinion. The reason they want Qatar, though, is not for Manchester United. They want Qatar for the shiny new toys. They want Kylian Mbappe. They want David De Gea thrown out to the Wolves. And I think, okay, you can have those opinions, but that's not why you want a new owner. The new owner is in regards to Manchester United's future and getting rid of the Glazers, not a shiny new transfer window. And Dion brings up the point here. Those voices, they care about winning the transfer window. They don't care about the future of this club. This comment here, before we get into the PR battle, just Chris brought up a little bit earlier in the chat. I want to get into the PR battle and sort of what's happening and why it's happening. But just in regards to short-term sort of look at things, in regards to how this deal is playing out, in terms of it's getting no sooner to a conclusion. He's saying they announced the deal after the season, so there won't be any riots at the games. Has this just come down to whatever the decision has, whether it's been made or it's a long process or not, whatever the case, nothing is going to happen until after the FA Cup final?
I don't know. I don't see the benefit of doing that. I don't know what their obligations are just with Manchester United being a publicly owned club. I mean, I guess there would be no obligation to announce anything now. We don't know all the reports coming out, and this is how you'll get a gist of what's happening. United really there's no concrete interest in any player at the moment. And I think that points to they don't know what the budget is. They don't know who's going to own the club. So that suggests to me that they're not really settled. I think if someone was going to be in charge, I actually think they would announce an ad. I can't be – I've got to be honest. I really can't see – when's United's last home game? Maybe they'll announce it at that point. Because, I mean, the FA Cup's going to be in Wembley, isn't it? So
yeah, the FA Cup's in June, so I'd say it's the last weekend of May, maybe first weekend in June, I'm not sure.
All right, let's have a quick look. United's last home game will be against Fulham, and that will be on the 29th of May. I dare say we'll get an announcement a day or two after that. I could see in the lead up to the Manchester City FA Cup final.
You mentioned there in regards to we don't know our targets because we don't know what the budget is. And in terms of, could you sort of put the shoe on the other foot in regards to incoming players, let's say I don't know, Declan Rice or whoever, Harry Kane, etc. Do you think they're looking at Manchester United, and would their decision be influenced by the ownership or not really? Like Sir Jim's money, Qatar's money, they're still going to get the same wage. Or do you think they would say, hang on, I'm not sure what's happening here, I'll go somewhere a little bit more steady?
I don't think so. I mean, Manchester United is steady. Regardless of who the owners are, look, fans are always going to want the extreme of everything. We want the best of everything. United this season, I mean, I know top four, you could argue, is in jeopardy. All in all, I mean, there's been progress. I don't think that's clearly there to see. If you're a player and Eric Ten Hag, like that's your guarantee. That's your key. That's the thing that you're banking on for a successful future. I think Eric Ten Hag will get this club going forward, whether he has 100 or 300 million to spend. It might just take him a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, like, what clubs in world football give you a guarantee outside of Manchester United? PSG, Manchester City, Real Madrid. Beyond that, who's giving you a guarantee? Bayern Munich? Well, if you're a player who wants to compete, you don't want to go to Germany. So in terms of the Premier League, I don't think Chelsea's more attractive than Manchester United. I don't think Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal's more attractive. I think Arsenal are going to fall off next season. So, all in all, if you want to go to Manchester United, you go to Manchester United because of Eric Ten Hag, not because of who's going to own the football club.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, look, I completely agree. I think it is just an interesting case because we're definitely looking at it in terms of, okay, bringing the players in, but the players are the other party in that transaction. But in regards to the PR battle, Larry, this is happening. This is something we've sort of not agreed or disagreed together, but we've had many discussions around in regards to my thinking is sort of what is the point in PR in terms of they just need to sell it to the Glazers. No one needs to influence the Glazers or Qatar or Sir Jim don't need to influence me. Okay, I can have a perception once they get the keys to Old Trafford, but that's not going to help them buy the club off the Glazers. So I've always had my thoughts in and around that in regards to sort of leaks to the media, etc. I think they should be sort of directing all their progression and all their focus towards the Glazers in terms of the one who is actually going to be making the decision. But there's been so much PR in the last couple of days, and your thoughts on it in regards to, again, fans are behaving or reacting whatever the side of the fence they sit in. If you're on Team Qatar, you're looking at anything sort of positive or negative around Sir Jim and being it very extreme. If you're on Team Sir Jim, you're looking at anything around Qatar's briefs and you're being either completely negative or positive around them. There was one the other day or last couple of days come out that Qatar are looking to bring in sort of former legends. Now, they didn't sort of list the legends, but you assume, I don't know, David Beckham, who does have the relationship with Qatar, obviously, but you assume Gary Neville, Paul Scholes. And in what capacity, I have no idea. Obviously, I didn't click on the article, but you'd assume, I don't know, director of football or ambassador, which they already are, or not those two, but you know what I mean? So legends are already involved in the club in the day-to-day running, or not day-to-day running, but around the grounds, they're always in and about. But in terms of when that story came out, the last couple of years, that has been a big negative amongst Manchester United fans. So the jobs for the boys, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in, everyone came back. And that is perceived now as a big negative in having all these little legends return. I see it as a positive. A lot of people don't like it now. So that is a negative feeling around the club. So when that story came out, something I do very much think Qatar will do, because I think Qatar will need a lot of good PR around them. However, when that story did break, the cynicism amongst the fan base sort of looked at it and said, hang on, no, that's Sir Jim leaking a bad story about Qatar. And I'm just thinking, where did you fall on that? Was that Sir Jim in terms of, because that is while in my opinion it is a feel-good story in terms of bringing these players back and a positive bit for Qatar, in terms of the feeling amongst the fan base, I can understand the fans saying, oh, hang on, that's Sir Jim, because it's quite a negative story in regards to the way the fans are feeling at the moment in terms of bringing old people back. So that story is it from Qatar's camp or Sir Jim playing a curveball?
I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question with an alternative statement. If Arsenal fans are the stupidest fan base in football, Manchester United's fan base are right behind, and we're chasing them and we're competing with them for it. Because, again, football fans, the same people who want Qatar in are the same people who said Ollie's bringing the boys back together. Like, you can't win unless Manchester United finish first every single season and buy big players every single season. These same fans will be critical of everything, and they're called a vocal minority for a reason. They're the ones that put out the most tweets because they don't have girlfriends. They just masturbate on Pornhub every day and go tweet about Manchester United in between sessions. It's as simple as that, Tom. And the thing is, sensible fans, the ones who can actually analyze a situation holistically, who can say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't a shit manager. He did a good job. It just fell away in the final season because he finished second against Manchester City. He beat Pep time and time again. It's not a coincidence. There was something Ole was doing right. So to rewrite history and say Ole was shit isn't right. And the same way to say he brought back the boys club. Look at what Michael Carrick and Kieran McKenna are doing this season. Michael Carrick's on the verge of getting promoted in the Championship to the Premier League with a club that was sitting beyond mid-table when he took over. And then you've got Kieran McKenna, who's gotten a club promoted into League One.
I saw that interview in regards to Andy Mitten did an interview with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and it was, I haven't read the interview, but it was along the lines, I think, in terms of the question, was really talking about Carrick and McKenna, and it was pretty much just Solskjaer saying, yeah, they're doing very well. I'm happy for them. They did a good job at Manchester United. It didn't work. Look, I don't want to bring him back into it. You sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but Goldbridge was discussed. Again, I tried not to watch it, but it sort of pops up on my timeline, and you watch it a little bit. He is the biggest voice amongst Manchester United fan base, so it is hard to escape. Again, his responsibility as having the biggest platform, he neglects it completely because even he was going after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in that interview, really giving it to him, say, what the F is he talking about? Why is he? I don't need to hear about Carrick or McKenna. And all it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying, yeah, two of my friends are doing really good. And he's been completely thrown under the bus. So what do you think the rest of sort of his minions on social media? They go after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they go after Carrick and McKenna. And I'm just thinking it was just a club legend saying, yeah, two of my mates are doing very well. And I'm pleased for them. That's all the interview was. But the fan base has turned against Solskjaer for it, just simply having an opinion. And then I'll go back to earlier you mentioned in terms of, people mentioned earlier, so Jim Ratcliffe was the saviour 18 months ago. In terms of, you mentioned those fans, in terms of bringing the old boys back, they sort of didn't like it under Solskjaer, now they love it under Qatar. There's a very sort of prominent example. A tweet came, I don't know, it was an anniversary, it was probably around the anniversary, I'm not sure if that's why it popped up or not. But in the last game before the Europa League final against Villarreal, Harry Maguire put a photo up saying it was when he was under injury cloud and saying, disappointed way to finish the season, but we're looking forward to the Europa League final. And the replies underneath this, Larry, it was Prime Nemanja Vidic and Rio Ferdinand. They're saying, get back fit, skipper. We need you back in the starting lineup. We're going to lose without you. And the feeling towards Harry Maguire then, by those same people who now are giving him death threats and abusing his family, they are the same people. And they're the people who have these, unfortunately, the loudest voices amongst the fan base.
Yeah. Even with Harry Maguire, like it's an interesting point, but it points to the narrative as a whole. Manchester United's fan base, online fan base, I should decide, majority are teenagers. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. They're teenagers or really immature grown men, okay? At the end of the day, same thing with Harry Maguire. In his second season, he was a saviour. We got our centre-back, worth the 80 million, killing it, captain, legend, best thing since Brian Robson. But now the narrative's changed. Now, the narrative has rightfully changed because his form has naturally dipped off. There is a tool for a job. In the case of Harry Maguire, United changed the way they played. It doesn't play. They played to his strengths. Now they play to his weaknesses. He got exposed. It's as simple as that. But it's the same thing. Like you said, at the end of the day, with this ownership thing, I'm neutral about it. Qatar obviously is more attractive because you feel like they're putting the infrastructure around the floor. I'm not really bothered about transfers, if I'm being honest with you. It's the other stuff that I find quite appealing. It's the investing in the youth, investing in the women's football team, looking to branch out United in terms of buying other subsidiary football clubs around the world. Like, it's all of those things that I find quite attractive. transfers will always happen, whether it's the Glazers, Sergi and Ratcliffe, or you
I don't
and
think
I.
the transfer market changes drastically, Sir Jim or Qatar.
No.
A lot of people think, okay, and we've had these debates in regards to, okay, Qatar, who's the likely first sign? Is it Kylian Mbappe, players like that? Obviously, there is maybe the tendency to go out a little bit bigger under Qatar just in terms of recent history, what we have seen them do. But in regards to financial fair play and the machine that is Manchester United, here we sit and rightfully so talk about the Glazers' investment or lack of investment. Ultimately, no club has spent more than Manchester United. So how can the Qatar come in and make us spend even more? Well, obviously, we are going to spend the most regardless. That has always been the case. So I'm just saying the transfer windows will look very similar in regards to output and the spend. The structure and the reasoning and the intent behind the transfer window will look a lot different.
Chris makes the point here, though. I think United are in some trouble with financial fair play because United have actually we've run at a loss until the last quarter where they released their most recent result. Was that in March? United recorded a profit in March, but prior to that, United actually reported a loss in the last financial year. I think it was for 21-22. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But United ran at a loss, and when you run at a loss, you can't be making £200 million transfers in a summer.
If you look at the last window, in regards, we spent big money.
Well beyond budget. Well, if you believe most reliable journalists said United's transfer budget was 150. I think we ended up spending around 220. So United overspent by 70 million. And the thing is, these budgets are planned for, how much does it cost to run the operation, player transfers, player sale, player wages, etc. But United, the way we started the season, forced their hand. And it's kind of ironic because if they gave the finances to Erik ten Hag earlier in the transfer window, you could argue United actually start better because they would have had Anthony and Casemiro, and by virtue, they would have spent less. But particularly in the Anthony transfer, they went in. All right, it's going to be 70 million or whatever it was. All right, now we're good. Shit. All right, actually we do. All right, well now it's going to be 88 million. All right, no problem. We'll sign.
Well, looking back, my favorite transfer, just in regards to it's definitely not my favorite transfer, but looking back in terms of how it unfolded, Troy Malacia. Leon agreed a deal. I think they got a here we go from Fabrizio Romano potentially. Here we go, Troy Malacia, Leon, 13 million. So United say, okay, that is the price, 13 million. We'll up it by 15 million. We know that's what you want. Here's a little bit more. Accept it. And I think when we're the first team in and we go 50 million, well, the other club go, well, hang on. No other clubs come in 50 million. The real price is 80 million. Okay, it's 80 million then. I think we need the other teams to do our bidding for us. Wait till they accept a bid, then come in with an extra 5 or 10 million to sort of sweeten up the deal a little bit. And looking back at that Troy Malacia deal, I thought it was brilliant.
Well, what United actually need to do is what they did 15 years ago, which is sign the best young and emerging talent. Because look at the example of Wayne Rooney. Like United paid a lot of money at the time for Wayne Rooney, but he was 18, elite talent, and in those cases, you do pay the top money, like that's expected. But then we also had no one was going after Nemanja Vidic. Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal. No one was trying to sign Nemanja Vidic when United were. No one was trying to sign Patrice. Patrice Evra was he played in a Champions League. Was it semi-final?
No, final, Monaco.
It was the final, wasn't it? The season before he signed in 05. It was the 05. So at the end of the day, Patrice Evra was a good enough name. He had established himself in European football, but these top clubs weren't necessarily bidding for those players. United need to go back to having a strong... You always go back to the root cause. It's not... Yes, being a good negotiator helps, but if you and I want the same jersey, well, the jersey is going to be worth as much as you and I are willing to bid for it. But if you have picked out a jersey that I don't yet know about, well, then the jersey is only worth the market that you're willing to spend in. And that's what United was so good at that we're no longer good at. Do you remember the Chicharito signing? Young striker from Mexico comes in and scores 20 goals for Manchester United.
Well, a box brings it up here in regards to not Chicharito, but a similar type. So I remember back in the day, obviously Anderson was a big name, but back in the day when Anderson and Nani were announced at pretty much at the same time. Obviously, that famous photo of them both with the shirt unveiling. And yes, you do need those signings, and whether it comes under what type of ownership, who knows. But in terms of just the footballing structure, they are the deals that definitely need to be done. Now, there's a point from Dion I want to bring up, sort of taking it back to Qatar and Sir Jim, but Tom here as well. Good to see you, mate. So far, I've only seen the Sun report this story that the Glazers prefer Ratcliffe. No other news outlet has said the same thing, so not sure whether to believe it or not. Definitely 50-50 whether we believe it or not. The likelihood of the Sun's accuracy would probably allude to this is not accurate. But again, it's 50-50. It could be a guess, and the guess could fall on the side of it being correct. Who knows? But it is just, I think, worth noting that it is the only story so far with an author has put his name on it. In terms of this story, it's not just sources say. But it's an interesting one there. But Dion here brings up. Let's bring it back to the Qatar side of things, Larry. In regards to this, is my look. Obviously, the sports washing aspect of it is a huge negative and something you would definitely have to deal with as a fan base, probably more so as individuals. But this point here, Dion brings up, which is my huge concern in and around the Qatar bid. I'm mostly concerned with football operations. PSG is an absolute cesspit. Just in regards to PSG, that is my, and look, people could point to PSG and say, look at the league titles. They've been absolutely brilliant. I can only dream of that happening for Man United in England. I can understand that, but PSG, well, the Qatar have come in to win the Champions League at PSG. They've done anything but win the Champions League. I think they're further away from winning the Champions League than they ever have been. And that's crazy to think when the front three is Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi. But I think that is where a fear of mine where we could go down that route. And Thierry Henry was speaking the other day saying, yeah, that they're doing well there. They've got some good players. They're winning some games. But he came out with the point, he's obviously got his finger a little bit closer to the button as well in France, saying, the Qatar owners, the PSG fans hate them. In regards to they've done nothing for the fans, they've completely neglected them. I'm just thinking, here we are as Manchester United fans saying we need our owners to embrace us. We need a communication. We need connection with our owners. The Glazers don't care about us. Thierry Henry, who was in France, is saying PSG owners, Qatar, do not care about the fans. Now, obviously, would that change? Would they have a different ambition, a different sort of operation style at Manchester United? Potentially. Maybe that would be the case. But the only evidence we have is how they do it at PSG. And like Dion says there, I just don't like how PSG is run on and off the pitch. And again, they might run Manchester United very differently. And fingers crossed they do if they are to come in. But my only evidence is what is happening there. And that concerns me on and off the pitch.
Yeah, no, and rightfully so. I wonder if you could ask the same group of fans who say, no, we want Qatar, etc. If Qatar were worth a little bit less than Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I'd love to know what the opinion would then be. Because I'm telling you, it's purely for the money, isn't it? Let's in a hypothetical situation, if Qatar came in, right, under Qatar, let's say United get to spend £400 million. I don't want to see Mbappe signed for 200 million of that. I'd rather see, all right, well, we know David De Gea is probably limiting the way United play. Use that extra money to get him a first-choice goalkeeper. Or use that extra money to get Casemiro's back up. You're going to get Christian Eriksen's back up and Bruno's back up. And you're going to get Frankie de Jong too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to use that extra money, all you're doing is bringing Erik ten Hag's project to life quicker. You don't want to ruin the project by bringing in a player who's going to upset the culture, the team morale. The first thing Mbappe will do is he'll score a hat-trick and he'll be walking all over the shop. So when we verse Manchester City, when we actually need to run, he'll be chucking a sulk up front, whinging that the ball's not come to him. Can you imagine? Oh, man, I think Bruno would actually – I think there's a good chance he punches Kylian Mbappe on the pitch.
Look, I'm so mixed on Mbappe. We've had this discussion in and around the World Cup probably. Wouldn't we love Mbappe? Yeah, he's worth a bag. You just bring him in. He's so good. But here we are on today. Now, our opinion might change tomorrow, so don't bring Mbappe in. But as things stand at the moment, I'm completely against it as well.
I think you can – Mbappe and Rashford are the same type of player. I think we can all agree Mbappe is the better player, right? Mbappe is the better player, obviously. But you can only have one of them. I don't think United can afford to play with both of them. I think they offer you the same thing.
Well, when I saw PSG play, I think it was against Manchester City. They played City in the group stage this season. I believe they did.
Did they though? Sorry.
PSG and Man City, did they play each other in the Champions League group stage? I'm sure they did. I know Messi scored a good goal.
Not in the group stage.
Knockout stage, was it? In the chat, let me know where. I'm sure PSG played Manchester City. I'm sure they did because I know Lionel Messi scored a good goal.
No,
I'm
they
sure
did.
it was against
You're right. It wasn't the group stage.
Might have been last season. I'm not sure. But what I remember watching that game, the front three of Manchester City the front three of PSG was Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi. It was against Bayern. No, sorry, it was against Bayern Munich. Might have been. I forget. Might not have been against City. I'm not sure when it was. Correct me in the chat. But I think it was against Bayern Munich potentially. The front three of Messi and Neymar and Mbappe. It was embarrassing. They literally just stood on halfway. PSG were defending with 7 players. And when you do that against a team, I think it was against Bayern Munich now from memory, it was an impossibility. Bayern Munich so it was a training ground session. And I'm just thinking that is, when if you have Mbappe and Marcus Rashford, you can only afford maybe one of those players at a time. But Tom brings up here in regards to throwing this back to the actual ownership aspect of it, in regards to talking about Qatar and PSG and relating that to Man United. A bit unfair to base an owner of another club's judgment of another Qatari potential owner. That is where I look at. Look, I can if Qatar take over Manchester United, yeah, they might run it completely different. Of course, you do have to give them the benefit of the doubt and see what they do to apply to Manchester United. However, I completely agree in regards to Nice and Sir Jim. We're all saying, it's a failure at Nice, so it's going to be a failure at Manchester United. Shouldn't we then be judging Sir Jim a little bit different? Well, he's going to treat Manchester United different to how he's treating Nice.
Is he? But this is the problem. We don't know. We don't know whether Sheikh Jassim's going to be amazing or awful. We don't.
United are. You mentioned before. United are just a different beast. It is hard to judge previous jobs, where owners, players, managers, whatever.
Absolutely.
It's its own unique sort of environment.
Can I put on a positive? Can I say I think Richard Arnold has done a belting job this season. I think compared to the Ed Woodward era, under the same owners, Richard Arnold, breath of fresh air. I think as a CEO, you couldn't have asked for more. I think he's done as much as he could. He's given record transfers to Eric Ten Hag. He went and met with fans, which Ed Woodward would never do. He spoke openly about backing the manager, making sure we spend the money in the right areas. He spoke about building capital so they could invest in the stadium, invest in transfers. And the thing is, that points to the structure's actually there. I think there's enough there already that you don't need to blow Manchester United up. Just need to tweak things. Just need to make a few tweaks here and there. And you've got a humming machine. You really do. And I'd like to see, regardless of who takes over, it's what happens in the day-to-day. Like, fundamentally, that's where the Glazers have failed. And if you keep Richard Arnold in, you give the manager the right resources to be successful, you put the correct infrastructure around the football club, the potential to Manchester United, Tom, it's only now that we actually even entertain the idea of Qatar because the Glazers have misspent and mismanaged the situation so badly. If they actually use the money correctly, invested correctly, United would be making even more money than they were before and would be such a financial beast that the Glazers wouldn't even need to be in a position to sell.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it.
No, 100%. Tom here, interesting one here. I'll get your thoughts as well. We've discussed this before. The difference is we have an idea of RATCLIFFE as an owner already, so the judgment is a bit more educated. Where Al Thani, we don't know him, so we're just judging him because he's Qatari. I'm sorry, Tom. We've had many chats, Tom. I have nothing but respect, and we'll definitely respect that opinion. Qatar are buying Manchester United. This is Qatar. This is not Sheikh Jassim or Al Thani. We had no disrespect to sort of muddling up any of the names if I'm calling him.
It's not disrespect. It's fact. Sheikh Jassim's wealth is, I can't remember. Yeah. I did.
It's like 1 billion. It's about 1 billion. Yeah.
But he's going to spend 5 billion to buy Manchester United. He's the chairman of a bank, of the Islamic
It's crazy
bank.
how that went under the radar. It only just came out in terms of a lot of reports actually said he's actually net worth. It's a lot sort of less than Sir Jim. Right, so there's no doubt this is a Qatari bid. It's not Sheikh Jassim. He's what's £5.5 billion of a bid. He's only worth $1 billion. Only worth, I should say.
I mean, I'd love to be worth an eighth of that.
But there's a question here, or not a question, a statement. Jason, I haven't seen in the chat before. Hope all is well, mate. Hope all is good. This is a PR spin, no decision made. Which, again, what we alluded to at the start. Who knows how this news has come about, why it's come about, where it's come, etc. Just in regards to the PR battle. Here we are. Some team has to win the transfer window, lose the transfer window, etc. The PR battle. Who's winning it at the moment? Because I think Qatar were, and I think Qatar still are. But depending on how you look at it and how you perceive things, maybe it's, I wouldn't say it's swinging back into Jim's favour, but if he came out and just gave us a bit of a statement, again, I don't know how his hands are tied in regards to sort of non-disclosure agreements, but he needs to communicate a little bit more. I think if he comes out and gives his intentions, that would help his cause a lot, because us being in the dark isn't helping him.
Well, he signed an NDA, and I think that's the difficult bit for him. And unfortunately, I don't think the fan base is that level of in favor of Qatar that Twitter would have you believe. I actually think if you walked around Manchester and you asked the local,
my next point,
I think that absolutely would tell you Jim Ratcliffe. So
On that, and I'd love to get Andy Minton. Maybe we'll ask Andy Minton. Obviously, a very busy man at the moment in around this, so maybe not. But I'd love to get his thoughts on this because he brings it up, and he brings it up in a very eloquent way in terms of not stepping on anyone's toes and not pissing people off, but showing the respect and showing the realism behind the situation. He says, "What is a Manchester United fan? Manchester United fans they're everything. They're the person in Salford who goes week in, week out to Old Trafford, and they're you and me who live on the other side of the world at 3 a.m. To watch Manchester United. So what is a Manchester United fan? If you ask this person, they're going to say Ineos. You ask this person, they're going to say Qatar. And here we are. We're the furthest thing from match-going fans, Larry. We can go once every couple of years if we're lucky. But I think you and me and a lot of people in the live chat as well would share a similar mindset as the match-going fan. In terms of, not to say that's a right mindset or wrong mindset, but in terms of, I think we share that type of mindset compared to, and here I am, I'm on Twitter. I've got a phone, I'm on Twitter, but compared to a fan you would see on Twitter. You know the example that I am using. But the Twitter fan, and here I am on Twitter, I understand that, but that perception of that sort of reactionary person, sort of Glazers or Eric Ten Hag out, Solskjaer, Sack Solskjaer, etc., splashing out all over social media, 100%, they're 100% behind Qatar. Very likely. The people at Old Trafford, and not to say they're better fans, but in terms of that is the core of Manchester United. That is a huge part of Manchester United. Andy Minton is right. A huge, and now some of them obviously want Qatar, no doubt. It can't be naive to suggest otherwise. But there is no doubt a huge part of the Old Trafford sort of match-going fan would be behind Sir Jim. Now, is that a demographic thing, and is there something against sort of the Qatar and Middle East in terms of the way he's reporting and sort of subconscious bias in regards to that potentially? But there's no doubt that the match-going fan would side with Sir Jim, whether rightly or wrongly. I think that is very much the case. But if you go to the majority, in terms of online and Twitter, and their sort of value as a fan is just as important. There's no doubt here we are as one of them who don't go to games. The majority of those are 100% Qatar.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing, like Twitter, if you're on Twitter, it's honestly a small sample size. Like you're looking in one area for a feeling or a result. It's simply not the case. And it's a vocal minority. I think if you actually surveyed every Manchester United fan around the world, I mean, I'm sure it'd be a different outcome. But that's again, I think grown men are actually siding with Jim Ratcliffe because they're the ones using a little bit of logic here. At the end of the day, everything needs to be taken into account. Look, I want to post an alternative. In 12 months' time, United have spent 200 million. The squad is stronger. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's in charge. The Glazers have 20% stake. Is anyone criticizing Sir Jim? They're not. It's just a feeling. It's the cool thing to do. Criticize Sir Jim. Look at him. He's pro Glazers. He's supporting them and allowing them to still ruin the club. Please.
I tell you what I would love, because I do see a clearer path to success under Qatar. So that is where if I had a choice tomorrow, okay, which owner to come in, I do see a clearer path to success with Qatar. I'll tell you what I would love. And in regards to it might be what needs to be done in regards to get the Glazers out. If Qatar give 20% to the Glazers, I'm just thinking, would we see a different reaction from those fans? Because ultimately then what happens is Qatar gain control, the Glazers leave, which is exactly what's going to happen under Sir Jim if Sir Jim comes in. But if Qatar do that, what would the reaction be from everyone saying full sale only? Because I think that would be brilliant. Qatar come in, they can implement everything they want, they keep Glazers on for 2 or 3 years, but would our Qatar then in bed with the Glazers? I don't think the reaction would be that. I think it would be, well, that's what it takes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Again, I'm like you. I'm almost the other way now. I'm so sick of the online fan base and the illogical rationale that I'm almost pro Sir Jim. And I hope he smashes it. Because at this point, whoever the new owner is, we just got to back him. Like we really do. At the end of the day, we don't get a choice here. And Qatar's more attractive because they got more money, but I bring back that original point. If there was a hypothetical situation where Qatar and Sir Jim have the same amount of money, this wouldn't even be a conversation. You also have to remember, not you, Tom, I know you're very much siding with me on this. If you were given the choice, you have to remember, this is someone who has ulterior motives for why he wants to purchase the football club. Now, he might be a Manchester United fan, but let's not shake what this is. No pun intended. Let's not shake what this is. Did you get that one? Anyway, there is an element of sports washing with this. There's not undoubtedly an element of sports washing with this.
Was a comment here from George in regards to Qatar want to clear the debt. This is where I think a lot of the misinformation is out there. Qatar, unfortunately, have said nothing about clearing the debt. The communication we have from Qatar said their bid will be debt-free. So Ineos's bid will be full of debt in regards to Ineos, and Sajim will be borrowing the money, and that debt will then be placed on Ineos. The Qatar statement says their bid will be debt-free, so almost cash up front. They have said nothing about clearing the debt. Now, if we look at PSG running huge debt. So there's no evidence to suggest Qatar are going to come in and clear that Glazers debt. Now, if they do come in, fingers crossed they do, and that would be brilliant. Maybe it's the first order of business they come in and clear that debt. But Qatar have said nothing in regards to clearing the Glazers debt.
I mean, the PR machine that is Qatar suggests that they would clear the debt. I trust that to be true.
But in regards to business, again, I can't comment on this because I don't know the logistics behind it and the reasoning behind it. But a lot of people, and you sort of read all the articles from the financial outlets, say Manchester United is far better run in regards to a lot of the tax laws and everything in regards to keeping a sizable debt.
Yeah, but Manchester United can claim more money back if they have debt. If you don't have debt, you can't claim anything. But again,
so I just think Qatar...
Yeah. When fans get angry at United being in debt, again, like it kind of pisses me off a little bit because if you don't understand how finance works, then you can't sit there and be critical of something that you don't understand. Like if United is in debt, so I understand that the reason that most fans have had the shits about debt is because they worry about what happened with Leeds in 2002, and because Leeds were in a similar position, they had debt, the owners weren't in a position to clear that debt. And then they ended up getting a points deduction. They breached a whole bunch of rules and they went to the championship. And they were banished from the Premier League for best part of nearly 20 years. That wouldn't happen to Manchester United. It just wouldn't happen. If that happened to United, the value of the club goes down. The amount of people lining up to buy Manchester United at a lower price would be enormous. Like, it just wouldn't happen. So that's why I get so frustrated when people talk about things they don't understand.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, that's not the high ground for me. But yeah, well, if I don't understand anything, like in terms of that tax law in regards to that, I'll say, look, I know nothing about it, but this is what I've heard. But in regards to here, this is an interesting point here from Stephen. Good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. So Jim Ratcliffe is greenwashing. What's the difference? In regards to this, this has been brought up, and you have to give it the air at times because we do accuse Qatar of sports washing. And in terms of Sir Jim and his business, a lot of the articles will come out. What's the difference if this is technically greenwashing in regards to sort of painting his business in a little bit of a better picture? And look, if you're cynical towards it, you could definitely argue that. My reasoning, which I wouldn't put it in that category or the same category as sports washing, is if let's say even an American owner, okay, if the Glazers are buying, are they sort of trying to deflect? Let's say a new owner comes in America to buy from the Glazers. Is he coming to deflect and sort of paint gun laws in a better light? No, that's not the reason. He's buying of Manchester United for a business side, a financial transaction. He's not coming in to sort of deflect from US gun laws. There is no secret why Qatar are buying and investing heavily in sports. We've seen over the past 2-3 decades on why that decision has been made. You look at the World Cup. This is a decision to paint Qatar, and rightly so. I think every country should be painted in a better light. We all should look to improve, but it's very clear, not to be cynical, but let's call a spade a spade. Qatar are sports washing. Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, etc. That is, and they might have a bad image, wrongly so. And I think in large aspects, rightly. Aside on Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, I think those Middle Eastern nations are painted in a far more negative light than they should, in terms of the way Western media does report about them. So they have a duty, and I can understand their sort of intention in terms of painting their countries in a better light. But there's no doubt that is what they're doing. And I'm just thinking that is where I don't think Sir Jim is buying Manchester United to paint Ineos in a better light. I think he's buying Manchester United for buying Manchester United.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the motives behind Ratcliffe are good. All the suggestion around his purchase. You've got to remember, this guy's in his 70s. Yeah, he's not doing it to make money. Let's be clear. I think there is a motive to build his legacy. I think he wants to be the guy to turn Manchester United around and take it back to the glory days. Again, like, look at his age. Why is no one talking about that? To buy Manchester United at his age, he gains nothing by United plateauing in the Premier League over the next 10 years. God forbid, I don't mean to be cynical here. He might not be alive in 10 years. All right? So he wants to turn Manchester United around. The only motive for Sir Jim Ratcliffe would be for Manchester United to be successful. You don't buy Manchester United at 72 to make more money. He doesn't need more money. It's about his legacy. So again, if we're quick to I can't speak. We're quick to assume that Qatar have positive motivations, going to turn this around. Again, until we've heard anything from either party, let's not assume one is guilty and let's not assume one is amazing. How about we all just take a break, take a breath? Jim Ratcliffe taking ownership with Glazers having 20% stake ownership is not really that bad of a scenario. It's really not.
It would have been the dreams, not dream, but it would have been very close to a dream 18 months ago, 12 months ago, 6 months ago, to be fair. And I'm just thinking, it's an interesting one. And Jason, again, brings the point up in regards to, and again, the only communication we have from Qatar and Sir Jim doesn't state this. So if they come out with a new statement, 100%, I would like to believe this, but we don't have that. We're very sort of just assuming here, but Qatar deal is 100% debt-free. The bid is debt-free. That is what is debt-free. They have said nothing, and maybe they will. Fingers crossed they will, but they have never said anything about clearing the debt. But obviously the second part of that is obviously what you do get sort of great excitement over. But Sir Jim has said the same thing in regards to investing hugely in the infrastructure. Sir Jim's and Qatar State was very similar in regards to that redevelopment of the stadium and training facilities. Haven't read this one, but I'll read it as we go. Yeah, a little bit of a change of topic, Larry. I'm totally off. Thanks, Box. Caught me off guard here, but we will answer it. Totally off topic. After the Jimmy Murphy statue, which was brilliant to see the other day, who do you think receives the next statue, Larry? I think we maybe asked this question last time. I don't know if we answered it, whoever was on with me, but might have been you, Larry. I'm not sure. But I think we discussed, okay, it's not going to be Ryan Giggs. But let's say he'd probably be the right answer. But it is a hard one because if it's not Ryan Giggs, sort of how far does it have to be for a statue? And I'm just thinking, what are the requirements? Because if you give Ryan Giggs, let's put Giggs on the table. Let's say he is a possibility. Well, you have to give Scholes. You have to give Roy Keane. You have to give David Beckham. And I'm just thinking, is it kind of hard to give a player like Ryan Giggs? Like just in regards to, okay, he is the icon in regards to, so Bobby has his. I'm just thinking Giggs is next in line, but there's so many people. Okay, Giggs at the top, but there's so many people just below him. And I'm just thinking it is tricky sort of finding this balance.
Giggs was phenomenal because of his longevity. I think you're right. I think that the difficulty with putting someone who would you put in that bracket? So I'd probably put Giggs, Scholes, Keane. It's probably those three. I think, would that be fair? Roy Keane's a shout, man. I don't think that'll happen there.
I'd be putting players. Look, they're there. I'll be looking at Rooney's very close. I'd be looking at Eric Cantona and Brian Robson. I think Brian Robson is in with a shit. I think Robson goes in that top category. Maybe not as high as Ryan Giggs.
But did he win enough? Like, I think to get a trophy now, because like if you look at Charlton, Law, Best, all elite players in their own right. But like Bobby Charlton particularly, I mean, Ballon d'Or, like he did everything. I can't see another player matching what he did. So if you're going by that, okay, he won a Ballon d'Or. Well, Cristiano Ronaldo won a Ballon d'Or, but he's a Real Madrid legend to me. Like I think he's still a United legend, but he should get a statue outside the Santiago Bernabeu before he gets one outside Old Trafford. I really don't know. I mean, Rooney holds the all-time goal scorer record, so that's why I can probably separate Rooney from the rest. It's a really difficult one. I don't think there's a wrong answer here, but I don't know if there's a right one.
I was listening to this morning, so Steve Bruce had a podcast out with the official Man United app. But if you haven't listened to it, even if you don't like Steve Bruce, well, you're not a Man United fan if you don't. But if you just know him as the manager, I just think the younger generation maybe only see him as the manager at Newcastle and Birmingham sort of things. Maybe they don't realise what he achieved at Man United. But go back and listen to it. My God, he's a very good listener, one or two very good stories. And he talks about Eric Cantona in it in terms of that impact that he did have. And the case for Cantona, Larry, would be, okay, brilliance on the pitch. But in regards to the legacy that he left and the impact he had on those younger players and those future generations, there is an impact. Okay, Cantona did retire when he's 30, which is absolutely crazy when you do think about it. But his long-lasting impact was felt for decades. So a lot of people are shouting Cantona in the chat.
I think Cantona was the catalyst, but I think there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes with Cantona in the center. And this isn't to take away from anything he did, but I think under Sir Alex, United would have gone there anyway. And I think it's a bit almost easy to say, oh, well, it's because of Cantona because he came in and we won the title. I think United would have gotten there anyway. I really do.
Is there something
Because
we can do
Pirelli
besides,
got
like, what's the next thing, not a statue? What's the next thing under a statue someone could get? Like, obviously, they're not going to get a stand. All the stands are taken. A plaque, yeah, it's better than a plaque, though. You know what I mean? Like, is there anything in between a plaque and a statue that can be done for those we're not quite certain on?
What do you want? A midget statue, Tom?
Yeah, no, I don't know. That surely there is something, because maybe I'm a sucker for these, but I do like these things around. They're iconic sort of things around Old Trafford. The Jimmy Murphy statue will be iconic in years to come. But whenever anyone goes there for the first time, the first thing I think anyone does when they're walking down St. Matt Busby Way, before they go into the mega store to spend their hundreds of dollars on the kit, what's the first thing they do? Because the first thing I do, you go and take a photo in front of the Trinity statue. I'm just thinking they are iconic things around Old Trafford. And you just want to see more, because there are so many sort of deserving legends, in my opinion. But the unfortunate nature of the beast that is Manchester United, if we give it to everyone who's deserving, there's going to be no walking room around Old Trafford. There's going to be 100 statues outside there, and then obviously that takes away the value. So it is hard. But Tommy, the Marwan Fellaini stand. Remember when we started this podcast, Larry? We looked at. There's obviously what it was back in the pub and sort of on our phone, just doing an audio only podcast. We did a team of the decade. I think we had Marwan Fellaini in it in regards to we applied context and said it just in regards to contribution. Now, obviously, we all have strong opinions on. We're not a great fan of the way he played the game and his quality, but in regards to longevity and contribution and sort of big goals and how bad that decade was, we actually had Fellaini in our team of the decade. I think Chris Smalling was in there as well.
Yep, and rightfully so.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy. What's Marwan Fellaini doing at the moment?
I have no idea. What do you think he's doing? I think he's probably eating. Is it breakfast time in the UK, in Europe? He's probably eating a croissant.
I think he was playing in Asia. He went to either Saudi Arabia or Japan, I forget what it was, but I'm not sure if then he went back to Europe. I like this from Box. Obviously, wouldn't get it at the moment. Wouldn't be too well received on, as I mentioned, in terms of the online fan base. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that's a shout in regards to that moment. Definitely, he's not getting a statue, but obviously, I do have a soft spot for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I wouldn't mind that.
How do you not have a soft spot for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Why do you need to say that with a hesitance in your voice? I'm not blaming you, but do you see what this fan base has done to us?
Yeah.
I like a club legend who scored a Champions League goal in the Champions League final to win us.
It killed me that last couple of months. That last couple of months under his management, when it all turned sour, I hated that. I felt sick every day. I wasn't enjoying my life at that time in terms of the reaction, the treatment he was getting from fans. It hurt. We sat here and I defended him more than most. I defended him probably more than I should have. I completely put my hands up to that. But I did it because he's a club legend. I now obviously been extremely fortunate enough to meet him on a few occasions over in Perth and him take time out of his day to spend a little bit of time, which is sort of, it will stick with me forever. But the treatment he received, and this goes back to the match-going fan / online fan, and here we are. We'll put our hands up. We are the online fan. But the treatment he got was shocking. The more I look back at it, you hear sort of interviews and snippets from the way he's talking now. And he deserved better. And ultimately, you do look at the facts. Now, he did fail, ultimately, in regards to the job that he was given and how it ended up. There's no doubt about that. But my God, you go back to see how he finished second with teams with the players that he did. He probably did a little bit better. Now, yes, he did need a trophy. Ultimately, that's what he was there for. He didn't achieve that, so he was right to go. But finishing second with that pile of, you know what, I wouldn't say it's an incredible achievement, but my God, he did better than what a lot of people do give him credit for.
Yeah, he did. Look, he came second, and he came second to Manchester City, who, at the end of the day, now look, what Mikel Arteta has done this season, banter aside, has been really impressive, and that's what a genuine title challenge is. But I hate it when people say things like, oh, well, he came second behind no fans. Well, so did every other team. Yeah. Every other team played in that same season. What sort of nonsense is that? Like, I've never seen a fan base beat down its own people, beat down its own manager or its own players the way some United fans do. I mean, I don't think Harry Maguire's good enough for Manchester United, but I don't want to wish ill health to him or his kids or his wife. Like, what the hell, man? I don't know. It's a funny old world, Tom. I'm ready for Jesus to come and just take us all out because at this point, I'm telling you, in our lifetime, do you think a robot will play for Manchester United? Do you think that's good? That'll happen?
It was that I was looking at the other day. Peter Crouch's podcast. Is that the footage of him doing that? But do appreciate it. It's good to see everyone in the live chat giving a little bit of love and respect.
Question.
What we see, Rover? There's those goalkeepers. You've seen those robotic goalkeepers where they're like impossible to score against?
No.
They're like, like a little shoe, like a time zone sort of thing, where you sort of have a shot and the goalkeeper reacts to it, and like they're just like freakish speed where wherever the ball goes, that they'll drop and they'll save it.
I hate all this technology madness that the world's going into. In Japan, there is a hotel. It is all robots. So like you walk in, the person at reception's a robot, tells you like, "Yep, this is your room." Pops up on the screen.
Well, you look at restaurants now. I haven't been. I don't know which restaurant.
The robot that brings your food. I want to punch it in the face.
That's like Back to the Future stuff, where they put the little pizza in the microwave or the oven, and then it pops out with this big pizza.
I'm telling you, that is how United. There's going to be a football club that says we've mastered the art of the transfer window. We're going to build our own player. Literally, it's going to be a robot. And it's going to score 50 goals. You think Erling Haaland's a robot? Wait till you see Erling Haaland GPT. Wait till that happens.
What's your latest feeling, just as we wrap up? And again, do appreciate everyone joining us. As I was saying, I do appreciate all the love and respect for Solskjaer, which it always was respectful in here when times did get tough. But it is good to see that. If you are still with us, please do leave a like on the video just as we're wrapping up. What are your current thoughts? Manchester City, treble, FA Cup final. Just how are you feeling? Because I'm not feeling good.
Panic boys, you know that. I love them, but they put on their Instagram the other day. It's all up to Real Madrid to end the treble. No, it's not. It's up to Manchester United to end the treble.
I've got more faith in Real Madrid than I do us, mate.
Unfortunately, I get what they're saying. I do get it, but when did Manchester United rely on others? Can we act like a big football club? I'm really.
That would be nice.
We haven't spoken about any football this video. All the press coming out. Laurie Whitwell, who's been on here before, and we trust him. He's a good journalist. He's suggested that Erik ten Hag's given the players 2 or 3 days off this week. They gotta come out firing.
Yeah.
Surely. United got to. So I think it's still in our hands. We've got to win 3 out of 4 games. Tom, talk to me about football because I haven't had a chance to join you this week. Are you still confident United make top 4?
Yeah.
You think we do?
Because we're at Old Trafford, yes. If those 3 games are away, given our current form away from home, I would have serious doubts, especially with Wolves, our bogey team. Now, I think we've got a decent record recently against Wolves, but just the feeling is they're still a bogey team. Old Trafford, I don't mind that. Chelsea at home, I don't. Now, Chelsea in terms of on paper, they're still very good, obviously, but I don't mind that match at home, and Fulham at home, I do fancy us there on the last day. Bournemouth away is one. Okay, we beat Bournemouth away, but our current away record and Bournemouth I think they are potentially close to being safe. Maybe it could hopefully be on the beach a little bit. I am confident now. If we go 1-0 down to Wolves, my opinion is going to drastically change overnight, of course. But I'm still confident of getting top 4. Box, stop with this. I love it, but stop it. Don't give me this hope. Weghorst 1-0 in the cup final. You can potentially see that like when Wigan beat Manchester City. But look, it is a tricky an exciting couple of weeks for Manchester United because, my God, if we did win the FA Cup and stop Manchester City's treble, what would be more exciting for you? What would you celebrate more? Securing the treble and holding on to our treble, or Manchester United winning a trophy? I think it would be the treble, in my opinion. It just the way we built it up, the way we built it up in our mind over the last couple of weeks, and this is a real possibility. I think if we were to get rid of that possibility, I think that would be the overriding emotion, in my opinion.
Look, at the end of the day, even if City pull it off, credit where it's due. United have enough time on their side to turn things around. And if United can turn things around over the next 3 years, that's what I'll bank on. Like, it's up to United to until this story only gets sad if they manage to actually challenge United in terms of their history, in terms of getting close to 20 Premier League titles. Until then, United are a more successful football team. History will always be on our side. So, I know it's enjoyable to say, no, we really want to hold on to the treble. I mean, this football team's been promising a treble for the best part of 10 years. I mean, it's going to happen at some point. It's United's fault that they're even in this position. Again, Glazer mismanagement. So the way I see it is, if United can turn it around over the next 3 years, then don't worry about it. I'm just going to focus on the positives.
Just to wrap up, last question. There's been this whole debate. We've had it over the last couple of weeks in regards to what's better football. Was football better in the 90s or is the quality better now? It depends on how you view it. There's valid arguments for both. I think it's very clear. Andy bringing up the point here, 1977, obviously stopping Liverpool winning the treble. I want to see if we can get Lou Macari back on in regards to before the FA Cup final. Talk about the feeling of sort of stopping your rival doing completing the treble. But on that, Larry, in regards to this correct answer for anyone in the chat and us, but if you're having a football debate, maybe you could sway on the other side of the argument. But if City are to do the treble, what is the better treble? What is the more historic treble? No. Obviously, you know, say, oh, we did it first. That's more historic. But in regards to what would you see as the greater achievement? Because I still look at Manchester United just in regards to the narrative, the story, the feeling. This Manchester City one will still be back. It will still be sort of an empty feeling in regards to if they do it. So I do think not to downplay their treble. It would be a fantastic achievement for them. Of course, it would. But I just think it would be very okay. That was expected. And I think the Manchester United treble would still be a lot more sort of football pure.
Yeah.
Even though this team quality-wise is brilliant, I understand that. I just think it was more special back then. Maybe that's the bias of a Manchester United fan. But I truly believe it. I do think.
It's harder. I mean, I think there is an element of... I'm very much... I think football was harder. I think it was harder to be a good team in the late 90s than it is now. I think that the top of the Premier League is more competitive. Absolutely. But I think if there was a more evenly spread of talent, I don't think even United's squad depth for the treble season doesn't get close to Manchester City's depth. I think our starting 11 was good, but we didn't have the depth that Manchester City have now. And that's the thing. I look at it as... The thing that makes United such a special football club is Sir Alex Ferguson built that football team. He took over in 86 and look at the team from 86 to 99. He rebuilt that football team over time. Pep, with all due, like that's to me what makes Manchester United special. It's not about just winning trophies. It's about a style. It's about a culture. It's about what that football club stands for. Manchester City doesn't stand for anything. There's no connection to Manchester. If you're a Manchester City fan, don't tell me you look at that football pitch and you see that group of players and you feel a connection. What do you feel a connection to? Well, oil money. Like, there's nothing there. It's honestly hollow.
I do truly feel...
That's the hill I'll die on.
I think when Manchester City win a trophy, I think United are very smart in what they do. As soon as City do win a trophy, United throw a transfer story out there. And what is on the back page? The United transfer story, not the trophy. And I think that is where we are saved a little bit in regards to the difference between the clubs. We don't have to, and maybe fans in Manchester have a different feel because they're sort of working every day with these people. But us on the other side, or the online fans, we don't have to deal with Manchester City fans because not to throw shade at them, but there's simply none of them. So we don't have to deal with it. Arsenal will be a lot more sort of hard to deal with in regards to their
investigation where they might have their Premier League.
That's going to take years, but that is a thing. So maybe you can give them the treble, give them the Champions League, and watch them stripped off in a couple of years' time. But just one or two before we do wrap up here. Tom here, I won't rule out Madrid beating City at the Etihad. Look, Real Madrid in Europe. If anyone's going to do it, it will be Real Madrid in Europe. What does give me hope, Larry, if Manchester City are to go through and Inter Milan are to go through, Mkhitaryan, Darmian, and Lukaku, former Manchester United players, that would give... Look, City should smash Inter, of course, I understand that. But in terms of the football narratives which I always go back to, it would give me hope. As much as I don't rate Lukaku, I would rate Lukaku as a former Man United player going up against Manchester City because they wouldn't want to face him. Just in regards to the last thing a Manchester City fan, imagine Lukaku scoring the winner in a Champions League final against us.
If Lukaku scores against Manchester City, I'll celebrate it as if it was Solskjaer putting it in the back of the net in 99.
Who is dreading the opponent more? Are we more fearful of Manchester City because they're that much better than us? Or are Manchester City more fearful of Manchester United of the, oh my God, it's United in a final. They're going to beat us in a final. But from a fan's point of view.
I don't think City are... I still think they're beatable. I really do.
The last time we played them, we beat them.
I think the complacency is... I think it's Manchester City's game to lose. And I think United won't be complacent going into the final, but I think there's a good chance that Manchester City go in complacent. Did we establish that the Champions League finals before the FA Cup?
No, after.
I think they'll value that Champions League, and I think it's a good distraction that could benefit United.
I still don't know in terms of, obviously don't want them to win the league, but if they are to win the league, I don't know if that is does that spur them on? Okay, the treble's on, that they're going to be more pumped up, or if they lose, are they going to be sort of more fired up after a loss? I'm just thinking, what's the best preparation for Manchester United in terms of cities?
That group of players will want the Champions League. Pep will want the Champions League.
Saw that photo Jack Grealish put up the other day in regards to he's getting physio treatment on his ankle, and in the background, if you zoomed in, it has our goal, and our goal was the Champions League trophy. So it definitely does show what Pep Guardiola, and fair play. Obviously, you'd love to be in a position where the goal at the start of the season is to win the Champions League. Fingers crossed that doesn't come to fruition for City. But Andy, getting my thoughts here. I think City, their fans would actually, as worried as we are towards facing Manchester City and Haaland, I think City are probably more scared of us just because we are the red half, and they couldn't think of anything worse than losing to City, losing to United in a final. The players, a different kettle of fish. I don't think the players mind, but from the fans' perspective, I do think that is the case. But Larry, been an absolute pleasure. Just plan on having a 20, 25-minute chat with you, but we've gone for well over an hour. Loved every minute of it, and I'm not sure where we sort of sit on it after all that. So Jim and Qatar, as things stand.
Jimmy boy!
Well, would you look? I don't know where I
Sheikh Jassim. If in using Australian slang, what on earth would we call Sheikh Jassim? Jason. Jassim. Yeah, it'd have to be Jason, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, that's clear. But in terms of, are you clear? Because I see success, and that's what I want as a Man United fan. I do see it happening pretty soon if Qatar do come in. I do, and not just success. What I mean by success is I do see immediate sort of developments at the stadium. I do see the training ground addressed straight away. That's success for me as well. I do see progress straight away. So, Jim, I do see that as well. But I see it as a slow burner, a more sustainable sort of approach to it. But so then, if I'm having to give the choice, I do look at Qatar. But in regards to the reaction online and the way the fan base has behaved, it is swaying me just towards Sir Jim, like I do with Scott McTominay, etc. When I do feel that some people need more, sort of more fair treatment, and I don't think he's getting that. So that is where I'm starting to sway towards Sir Jim, while still wanting Qatar to be successful. So I'm not sure where I sit at the moment. I'm right down the middle. As long as the Glazers go, that's where my main focus is. But if you're flipping a coin, sounds like the Housos character. Did you watch Housos when that was on?
No, mate.
There's a character, Shazza. A great character.
Look, I am very much down the middle. I want to say Jim Ratcliffe because I know it would upset Twitter, but I'm honestly down the middle. I could see benefits of both. I don't think Sir Jim is going to be anywhere near as bad as Twitter will have you believe. Because, again, like when you actually strip it back and you look at his age and you look at what he's got to, dividends won't be it for him. He doesn't need the money. The Glazers couldn't afford to buy Manchester United when they bought it for $600 million. Like Jim Ratcliffe could afford to spend $1 billion of his own money. It's the fact that it's $4 or $5 billion that he can't. So it can't be. I really don't think it's. And again, Goldbridge saying, "Oh, you're being selfish." If you want the Glazers in charge, it's out of self-interest. Like. You don't know what the motives are behind someone, so you can't say things like that. But again, this is a 70-year-old guy. All that has to be in for him is legacy. There is literally nothing else for him to gain. He's losing money by making this deal.
Oh, Qatar are losing money by this. Obviously, Qatar's motive is in terms of sort of showcasing Qatar, but they're not doing it for an investment. They're not looking at to sell in 2 or 3 years' time. So Jim's not selling.
If United... In 10 years' time, let's assume Qatar take over. Let's assume Sir Jim Ratcliffe take. This is my final point on this. If you look at it in 10 years' time, what leaves more of a blemish on the record if it's Qatar versus if it's Sir Jim? I think Sir Jim genuinely, and this isn't a racial thing, but I actually think he will keep the root of what Manchester United is. I think Manchester United will be massive no matter who owns it, but I think if it's Qatari money, I just don't think it hits the same.
It takes away from, and again, when it comes back to this point, is Sheikh Jassim is it an individual by Manchester United or is it Qatar? I think, and here we are, we have no idea. It is Qatar. We can say we don't know. We know. If it's just some random Sheikh Jassim with a lot of money who's in Qatar, 100% come in. But because we know that's not the case, and it is sort of a state-owned sort of football model, which they have shown before, and other people and other organisations, governments in that area have shown, we know exactly what it is. And that is where I think you go back to, and obviously different time, different eras, different environments, circumstances, of course, but Manchester United at its core. in terms of the Busby Babes and in terms of the workers around Manchester. At its core, it's different to the way Manchester City, the way PSG, the way Newcastle United will be run, clubs like that. Manchester United is different. And I'm just thinking, and that's not to say this money is better than that money, but just in terms of the intention behind it and the reasoning behind it. Like Manchester United shouldn't be owned by any government. They shouldn't be owned by the English government. They shouldn't be owned by the American, Australian, okay, let alone or the Qatari government. I'm just thinking that is where it's not what Manchester United is. And that's not to say Sir Jim's going to be a great owner, and not to say Qatar wouldn't be a brilliant owner. It's not to say that. Just in regards to what Manchester United is, I'm welcoming Qatar, but it does take away from the core of what is Manchester United just a little bit, and that is modern times. We all have sort of clubs do have to sort of compromise and sort of move to the future. Of course, everyone needs to evolve and sort of get with the times. But a huge part of Manchester United is not just the future; it's been proud of our history. And I'm just thinking we are a unique club in regards to that, and we do need to sort of cling on to it when it is there. But the main thing for me, which a lot of people have put in the chat, regardless if you fall on Qatar's side or Sir Jim's side, I think the one thing we all do sort of side on, the Glazers have to go. Now, I'm of the opinion if the Glazers are going to go in 2 or 3 years' time, that's better than nothing, because at the last 18 years, they've had no inclination of selling. If the Sir Jim or Qatar sort of give them a 20% stake and it's a gradual process, well, that gradual process is better than what I had 18 months ago. So I'm going to take that. Some people won't. But, Larry, been an absolute pleasure. Maybe we got sort of 3 or 4 chats out of the way in one episode. It's been a pleasure getting you back on. And fingers crossed, we've obviously got the preview coming up for Wolves. Let's throw it in the must-win category. I think it pretty much is a must-win match for Manchester United. So an exciting one for that. And a good kickoff time, Saturday night, midnight, for Man United fans. So I'll be up watching that. Maybe, I think last time we had a good kickoff time, we went live in and around the team news. Have a bit of a chat pre-match. We might do that this Saturday night. And again, appreciate everyone in the live chat. There's been a lot of different opinions, and rightly so in regards to this topic. But we do appreciate everyone keeping it sort of calm, respectful, and sort of level-headed in the chat. Very much appreciated. And I've sort of picked up on 1 or 2 things, learnt 1 or 2 things. So hopefully do leave a like on the video on your way out. If you are new, hit that subscribe button. And Larry, pleasure as always, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed the chat. Andy, thanks for the compliments. Great to see some new names in here as well. So everyone have a great night, and hopefully I'll be around more often, Tom.
Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. Until then, hopefully everyone has a good couple of days, and I'll chat to you quick smart. Until then, cheers.